A lot of my peers coming in today to have a conversation about things like vaccine and changes in the vaccine committee. We have Dr. Peter McCullough coming in, talk about flu hysteria and some success with nasal sprays that help reduce the viral transmission. Dr. Kirk Milhoan, he is the new member of the ACIP committee, and he has a report, a shocking report from the ground there on what it's like, what it's actually like to get vaccines approved. And then finally, Jeffrey Tucker from Brownstone Group comes in to give us a little talk about fixing the healthcare system and the insurance mess, and also giving some his insights into how things have changed in the last 18 months or so. So stay with us. We got a lot to talk about. Be right back after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
People.
All right, first up, let's get my friend and colleague, Dr. Peter McCullough in here. You can find him on XP_McCullough, MD, CULLOUGH. Also, he, of course, is with us at the TWC, thefocalpoints.com, PeterMcCulloughMD.com. The courage to face COVID-19. Peter, there's been so much going on this year. My God, it's hallucinating to try to keep up with all the changes, isn't it? So there's your book. So first, let's talk a little bit about a TWC product that you've been advocating for almost as long as I've known you, which is the nasal lavage. I know I haven't had you speak yet, but I've been bugging Susan. We had COVID in our household, and I said, just do the nasal lavage. This is better than any masking or anything else you can do. It's better than 6 feet distancing. This works.
You know, so true, Dr. Drew. Thanks for having me on the program. Happy New Year to you and Susan.
New Year.
Randomized trials came in over the course of the pandemic, and I think the capstone was called the Immune Defense Trial. And it was a large 15,000 patient prospective double-blind randomized multi-arm trial published in Lancet, showing that even on-demand use of nasal sprays and gargles could reduce the rates of getting, common viral illnesses. Now, when we get to COVID, there are really high-quality studies, and we get into the certain solutions from hypertonic saline to dilute povidone iodine to xylitol-based products. They all work, and when you do 2 to 4 squirts up the nose, sniff it back, spit it out, blow it out twice a day, and then do a throat spray or gargle twice a day, it prevents these infections.
And explain to them why, because I don't think people get how viruses get in, at least these respiratory viruses.
That's an important point. So we are breathing in viruses all the time. And I guarantee when you go on a plane, you have actually brought a virus into your body, for sure. It lands in the hair cells in the nose, actually the front part of the nose, and the virus needs a nice, stable environment for the replication. And when it replicates for about 7 days, you never feel it. It's on the hair cells, and the viruses are just building up in terms of their quantity and their colonization of the nose, getting ready to overwhelm the nose. And then the lymphatics drain back to the throat, and after about 7 days, you start to get a sore throat. But when you get a sore throat, you're 7 days behind on what you could have done, which was to disrupt this population of virions from becoming so large that they physically cause a cold or influenza, RSV, or COVID. So you're knocking it down a little or moderately so your body's own mucosal immune system can fight it off. And it's a brilliant strategy. Now that we've had this large UK trial, proof of concept come in, it clearly works. I've interviewed some people for my show, Dr. Drew, They haven't gotten a viral illness in many years. In one case, 20 years.
Yeah. And our product for TWC sold out in like no time. So Susan, we got to get that stuff going.
Okay.
And of course, I'm just husband, but
we need more spike support too, because my daughter's
we'll talk about
fiance has.
We'll talk about that in a second. But you listen to Dr. McCullough, right, Susan? You heard the explanation there? Okay. Because I got her to spray it once last night.
I'm learning what lymph nodes are recently. So, you have to go.
But Susan, you and Drew have been so sick so much since I've known you. You have to both, just when you brush and floss your teeth twice a day, do the nasal spray and do a 30-second gargle. I like to use, I love the Spry product.
How dare you?
Clear.
I don't get sick. He gets sick. I don't get sick, Dr. McCullough. I am not as sick as he is.
No, Susan, you were sick the last time we had our retreat. You were sick. Two retreats ago.
No, that was the time before. I got COVID.
But the bottom line is get on this program, and it's miserable to be sick. If everyone did this, instead of wearing masks or social distancing, this is what's called oral and nasal hygiene, and it works.
Yeah.
I did it yesterday. He made me do it.
Let's talk a little bit about food pyramid. The South Park boys, Cartman himself in 2014 said it's upside down. It just needs to be put right side up. The food pyramid. And he essentially had it. Cartman had it essentially 11 years ago. And although it's a little bit altered, to be fair, but that's the old pyramid. There's the new pyramid. And fats and red meats and things are at the top. But what I want to ask you is the cardiological community has been very rigid about saturated fats to the point where I don't understand why they're not. I wonder if it's the fact that they're only dealing with the population with disease. They're really dealing with people with heart disease, which is a disease state. And I can understand in a disease state, there may be some different recommendations. Is that what the bias is from?
No, it's a deep literature about animal saturated fats, including feeding studies and CRC studies.
I agree.
Where it's clear, the saturated fats from animals in butter, milk, and in those steaks, and it directly stimulates the liver to produce cholesterol. I mean, it's a straight line relationship. So with this food pyramid, it's not what I would have approved because the key concept here is the protein is all the same. The peptide's the same. So the protein in a plank of salmon is the same protein that's in, a Texas steak. What's the difference? It's the package. The package in the salmon is essential, healthy omega-3 fatty acids. The package in the steak is not essential, and in my view, harmful animal saturated fat. So, what a cardiologist would say, listen, we love the new food pyramid. Just get the steak, the butter, the whole milk, and the big turkey breast out of there and replace it with seafood.
Are you aware that there is a very different profile to odd chain saturated fatty acids than even chain saturated fatty acids? And so we've not yet incorporated all of that into this pyramid, it seems to me.
Right. So, I mean, some have gone back, and these people tend to be on the keto carnivores sort of the spectrum. And they've said, wait a minute, there's a reanalysis going back to Ansel Keys, and none of the feeding studies are right. None of the epidemiologic studies are right. And we have a green light now to consume animal fats. And they've been reframed. FDA Commissioner McCullough was saying, well, they're healthy fats. I'm not convinced. I've looked at the literature, trying to look at the Minnesota Heart Study and a reanalysis of it. I think it's more what's called confirmation bias. People who are on the keto carnivore diet, they want to eat sticks of butter. They really do. And I can tell you, as a rational doctor and a cardiologist, my advice is don't eat sticks of butter.
We still have to resolve this because
He's a cardiologist.
Well, no, if you notice in the food pyramid, there's a lot of fruits and vegetables, which mitigates the ingestion of the animal fats and the dairy fats. But at the same time, they just had a series of studies that came out that showed lower dementia rates in people that take high saturated dairy fats, high quality dairy fats, eat a lot of cheese, eat a lot of cream. And again, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking these things are very disease specific. We're not talking about all cause mortality. You were talking about cardiac disease. I'm talking about dementia. I think we still have to kind of sort that stuff out yet.
Well, that's a fair comment. But, I can tell you nutritional epidemiology is highly flawed because, nobody sticks on a diet and people are all over the place and they're trying to do food frequency questionnaires. The only groups who really stay on a diet and they stick with it are particular religious groups. And the one to point to are the Adventists. Now, Ben Carson's been named our National Nutrition Advisor. It's interesting. Adventists are lifelong vegans. They don't eat any animal proteins at all. No dairy, no saturated fat whatsoever. And they're some of the longest lived, healthiest people in the country, the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, a friend of mine is a nutritionist, biochemist, and she's a family practitioner also now. And she said, nutrition is so complicated, you really can't say anything except she goes, I can say though that these unsaturated fats, when you heat them up, are carcinogenic. And that when they're deposited in adipose, they seem to have an inflammatory component. And so the unsaturated fat story was kind of a sham.
Well, I mean, this idea of, you don't drink cooking oil, you're using it for cooking, and there are some nuances there. But, this idea of eating sticks of butter or eating, steak 3 times a day, what have you, you're talking massive consumption of saturated fat. So I can just tell you as a doctor, what I do is I keep my saturated fat intake less than 10 grams a day. So what does that equate to? If I had a Morton steak, that would be 20 grams. Okay, it's not too bad. But how about a Whataburger and fries? That's 60 grams of saturated fat. How about a pizza? That's 40 grams of saturated fat, several slices. So we actually have to get to grams of fat that you'd want to stay below. Now, I'm also very hard on carbs and starch. I think the 3 things that promote disease and cause people to be fat and become diabetic and have heart blockages and all these other problems are 3 S's: sugars, starches, and saturated fat. I think they ought to be out of the food pyramid, not at the top.
And I think that at least, all right, then we all can agree that that the carb story is finally being told more accurately. And really, the carb story is really the insulin. It's really an insulin story is really what it is. Yeah. When you get right down to it, it's the effect of insulin spikes. But okay, so let's talk a little bit, one quick second here. About flu. I had a chance to speak with Robert Redfield a couple of days ago. And if you and I have had a lot of conversations about the bird flu and about the press reporting on the bird flu, and so the nonsense, they were trying to whip up a frenzy last year, if everyone recalls, and we were all saying, "Hey, look, there could be a little outbreak, but get your emergency kits, get Tamiflu, have it on hand. There's good evidence
in the contagion kit, by the way.
You can protect yourself with some readiness and Tamiflu." But I kept saying, and I think you said this too, that if this thing does really break into human beings, it's got to be because somebody altered the virus. Somebody's doing gain of function on the bird flu. And when I spoke to Redfield last week, he confirmed that is happening, and he is terribly concerned that it's going to get out.
Yeah, Redfield confirmed it. We actually have a peer-reviewed publication from the McCullough Foundation. It was published in Poultry and Wildlife Sciences, where it was conclusive. The origins of the most recent clade in the bird flu outbreak emanated from the USDA Poultry Research Lab in Athens, Georgia. They were doing serial passage gain-of-function research. So there's a movement. Yeah. So that and the USDA and Brooke Rollins never denied it. So listen, this has been going on. Thank goodness we quelled this bird flu outbreak, but we now have what's called super flu. Super flu is human flu. It's H3N2 influenza. it looks like the vaccines are completely useless against this. And it's even a greater impetus, I think, for people to be prepared, high-risk seniors and others, with a black contagion kit from the wellness company.
And so it's Tamiflu. I was talking to Mary Talley Bowden this morning, and she said, I wish that Tamiflu was available over the counter. I thought, ooh, that's an interesting idea. But that's what we're trying to provide, essentially, is with these emergency kits, is the availability with backup of physicians.
Right. So, that, we have it prescribed in the kit. It's physician prescribed. Tamiflu is oseltamivir. It's one of 4 FDA-approved antivirals for influenza. And, if it started on day 1, it's amazingly effective. If it started on day 5, it doesn't work at all. So, there's people are confused out there, say, oh, Tamiflu doesn't work. I said, it depends on when it started.
And is this flu, I'm guessing, is more hand transmitted, fluid transmitted than these respiratory viruses that we've been so preoccupied about?
No, I think it's more respiratory transmitted. I've had some patients with it, and it's a legitimate concern that there have been, for instance, New York City is reporting near record influenza hospitalizations and visits. I think it's legit. And the term super flu is appropriate. But the response is not to go out and get more vaccines. Half of the nation takes flu shots. 3/4 of those hospitalized with influenza every year have taken the influenza vaccine. So it's not like the influenza vaccine is mitigating this. We need early treatment and we need prevention with nasal sprays and gargles.
I was just going to say, if it is indeed a respiratory transmitted virus, then the nasal spray will be a perfect way to mitigate. And the vaccine, to my understanding, does not protect H3N2, which is the so-called super flu. And then finally here, Peter, what are your thoughts on the change in the vaccine schedule for children? I know Nick Hulscher has been hard at work looking at crunching the data and talking about the deleterious effects of these excessive vaccine programs. It seems to me like we're getting into kind of a rational recommendation program.
And it came from the President of the United States. He tweeted out and through social, he essentially gave the order to do this. He told Jim O'Neill to do this. It didn't come from Robert F. Kennedy or anybody else. This was a Trump, what I call boss move from Trump, that Trump listened to mothers. The sequence of events was McCullough Foundation produces its report on autism spectrum disorder that links vaccines to autism in susceptible children. Combination vaccines in the modern day, are a risk factor for the development of autism. Then 3 weeks later, the CDC changes its stance on vaccines and autism on their website. Now, we had a press release at McCullough Foundation. We sent our report to O'Neill and Kennedy and everybody at HHS and at the White House. And sure enough, within 90 days, Trump just gives the order to make the change. Now, it's trimming the overall schedule, 17 diseases to 11, dropping the total number of doses by 55. All the vaccines are still available. And just like in Denmark, doctors will make decisions with patients on what's appropriate. And I can tell you as a doctor, Dr. Drew, that, I know when a patient needs a pneumococcal vaccine and a meningococcal vaccine.
Right.
For instance, my brother-in-law, who's had his spleen removed, I was all over him to get vaccinated. So it's very important.
Yeah,
we know what people need vaccines, and there are core vaccines and then the extras.
Yeah, the hepatitis B was such a bizarre thing to me because I was involved with that one. And a reminder that 88 countries do not have vaccine mandates. 3 of 5 communist countries do not have vaccine mandates. And I don't, you didn't know that one?
No.
China does not have vaccine mandates. China does not have vaccine mandates. I want you to think about that. And
Can I ask him a question?
We need to get rid of the vaccine mandates here altogether, but maybe in Florida first. But go ahead, Susan.
Dr. McCullough, what are your thoughts on the shingles vaccine? We just had recently a friend get shingles, a young woman, and I was like, uh-oh.
Let's see what he says. I'm curious.
Well, Susan, it depends if you took the chickenpox vaccine as a child. Now, there's 5 studies showing if you took the chickenpox vaccine as a child, you're much more likely to get shingles than somebody who had natural chickenpox. So I'll give you my case. I had natural chickenpox as a kid, And, I went ahead and took the shingles vaccine, both the doses now. And the second time, it was the roughest vaccine I ever took. I thought my arm was going to fall off.
Me too.
I'm not going to take anymore. Yeah.
Oh.
It was brutal.
Okay. What if you have?
But I'm sure have seen, and I've certainly seen plenty of incredibly painful, disabling post-herpetic neuralgia from shingles. I don't want it. I certainly don't want it.
But I got chicken pox twice when my triplets got it as a kid, because I didn't have it as a kid and I didn't know, and I didn't get the vaccine. So what if you get it in your 30s? Naturally,
you probably have obviously solid protection against chicken pox, and I imagine your risk is the same as mine for shingles. Here's the point about shingles: it must be treated on day one. Valacyclovir or Valtrex plus prednisone. Yeah. People contact me; they're already 2 weeks into shingles. Those are the ones who get post-herpetic neuralgia, and Dr. Drew is right; it can be brutal.
Yeah, you're so right about the early treatment. I can't tell you how many people go, I have a spider bite, or I've got, they come in with all kinds of ideas about what this is. I'm like, that's a single dermatome. That's got to be shingles. That's just got to be. And, people are not educated about it, I guess. And we've seen it in some young people lately. It's kind of weird and concerning. I don't know if it's some post-COVID or post-COVID vaccine phenomenon. I don't know if you've seen this, but young people with shingles is sort of a trend right now. And I've seen that.
Maybe because they had the vaccine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, no,
Susan, as a child. It's both the infection, it's both SARS-CoV-2 infection and the vaccine, I think has lowered our immune defenses on varicella zoster, because I'm seeing shingles in both the vaccinated and unvaccinated.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But I mean the chicken pox vaccine, not the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, no, we're seeing it's not having. Oh,
God.
Yeah,
it's so confusing.
I don't know why by the way, I don't understand why the chickenpox vaccine is on the sort of schedule for vaccines. I'm going to talk to Dr. Milhoan in a second about the ACIP and the ACIP. But that one has surprised me. I didn't let my kids get that vaccine because when it was new, I don't know if you remember this, they got chickenpox. Because when it was new, there were some terrible reactions, Guillain-Barré and whatnot, in Japan. I mean, do you remember this? And so it was brand new when my kids were baby, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. I don't think they should get this vaccine. So they get chickenpox, big deal. And that's what we went through. So all these vaccines are not that well studied when they come to the market. So anyway, we'll see. All right, Dr. McCullough, we so appreciate when you stop by, and I just love your work. And Nick, we are so grateful for what he's doing. He's been very kind to come by and review some of his data with us. What's coming up for you? Where do you want people to go to hear about where you're doing these things and what you're doing?
Well, make sure people go to McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. We've got some great plans for next year. We've got some big grant-funded projects. Check out my professional website for patient visits, petermcculloughmd.com. Of course, America Out Loud Talk News, McCullough Report, and then go to Focal Points, sign up, thefocalpoints.com. Get an update every day between 4 and 5 a.m. Central. That's where people are getting the critical abstracts and the scientific information to help guide them, since all of us now have to be in this world of public health.
It's so true. And finally, where can people get the McCullough protocol if they're worried that they have any post-COVID or post-vaccine injury?
Right. So McCullough protocol is on my professional website, petermcculloughmd.com. It's also on the wellness company website, twc.health, and at McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. So McCullough protocol, most widely used approach to treat acute COVID-19, and then McCullough protocol base spike protein detoxification, the most widely used fundamental approach to handle long COVID and vaccine injury syndromes.
And you're seeing good results?
Yeah. Now, it takes time, but we're seeing good results. We're seeing the converse.
Yeah.
People do not get better from long COVID or vaccine injury syndrome without the McCullough protocol, and that's in the Ultimate Spike Detox from the wellness company. It's this product here, Ultimate Spike Detox. I'm not seeing patients
Susan,
get better without it. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter went out and got a vaccine, had a reaction. I said, get the spike detox.
I don't want to talk about it.
Don't get anything else. Just get the spike detox. But
yeah, I gave her the spike detox. We got to get the super ultimate one, though, right? That's the one that you.
Spike detox,
and
yeah,
Susan,
I have the old one.
Susan, you got to stick with it for about a year. No, it's not a quick fix.
She seemed a lot better today. She had a really bad day yesterday, and I don't know why she did it, but she did. So we're going to give it to her for a year.
Lastly, what do you make of Dr. Redfield's theory that some of this is a mast cell mediated phenomenon? It doesn't fit for me, but he's very convinced of that. Do you have that same feeling as well?
That it's what
post-vaccine is a mast cell mediated, like a mast cell instability, MAST. Mast cell
the
instability.
MAST, the mast cells and basophils are the main cells that contain histamine and can be easily triggered. The spike protein is the core of this. And yes, people, probably everybody who's taken the vaccine or had long COVID has an easier discharge of histamine and other mediators from these cells, but it's due to the spike protein. It's not a spontaneous problem that's unrelated. No. The basis of everything we're seeing right now is the spike protein.
Yes, this is the part that people have to get. And so if you're going to take a vaccine for the pathogenic to deliver the pathogenic protein to you, you need to think long and hard about it because it makes no sense to me, particularly in an unregulated fashion in which it's produced by the mRNA vaccines. Anyway, that's a longer conversation. We've had it before. Dr. McCullough, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Got it. All right. Next up, we're going to speak.
I love him.
Yeah, of course. Dr. Kirk Milhoan. He is a pediatric cardiologist and chair of the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the ACIP. We're going to be back with him in just a second. Next year, the national debt is going to hit $40 trillion. As insane as that sounds, it's even worse when you consider unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare. If our status as the world's reserve currency suddenly changes, our nation could collapse under the weight of its debt. And as we all know, there are many forces trying hard to take down that US dollar. This is why thousands of Americans are moving portions of their retirement into physical gold and silver. Our friends at Augusta Precious Metals have put together a 3-minute report entitled Debt Will Hit $40 Trillion in 2026. Prepare your retirement now. It details how a self-directed IRA with real physical assets may be the best option in 2025. Go to drdrew.com/gold. That is DRDREW.com/GOLD, or text Drew, DREW, to 35052. That's 35052. And you'll get instant access to this crucial report. If you have $50,000 or more in your IRA, 401k, TSP, or other retirement accounts, consider our friends at Augusta Precious Metals to give you the information you need to make an informed decision about your retirement. It's fine to fight for our nation's future, but we all need to protect our own futures first. Read this important 3-minute report by visiting drdrew.com/gold. That is drdrew.com/GOLD, or text Drew to 35052. and see what Augusta can do for you. I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know, metal can rust. Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd.
Ask Dr. Drew.
I have no idea who Dr. Drew is.
He's been watching a lot of Dr. Drew lately.
Dr. Drew.
And Dr. Milhoan can be followed at heartandsoul.org. Also, K Milhoan, MD, PhD, and X. Dr. Milhoan, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I wonder if you first would mind reviewing your tale of intrigue of how your peers treated you and what it was like to get on the ACIP committee, and then we'll talk about what you found once you got there.
It's been quite an eye-opening adventure for someone who's not only a scientist but also a physician. I've always thought that medicine wanted to debate things and have discussions, and from my years as getting my PhD, you realize that there are lots of different opinions from looking at the same data. Just like you and Dr. McCullough were talking about diet, there's a lot of different opinions looking at the same data, right?
That's right.
So it's a fair thing there should be a healthy disagreement in science, because science isn't settled. It's always on. We're always finding out new things, new opportunities, things that work better than we thought they would, and things that have risks that we didn't appreciate. So when I came into this, there was an almost immediate ad hominem attacks against me and who I was and what I had said. And it was just interesting. They didn't want to talk about the data. It was just attacks. And I've always been, I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight for the vaccine industry. I just, if it works well and people are happy with the risk versus the benefits, I want patients and doctors to come together and make those decisions. So it sort of shocks me, some of the banter that is out there and the vitriol over that we would question any of these things. So there was a little uptick in disapproval that was coming from within parts of the hospital that I work in right now as an inpatient pediatric cardiologist. And people were concerned that I was putting on some of my notes that I believe that this dysautonomia or POTS-like syndrome was probably secondary or could be secondary to COVID vaccine, which is very clear in the literature. People were complaining that I put that on a differential diagnosis, and they asked me, so what was your proof? And I handed them 5 papers. So that went on. But when I was made the chairman, that brought it up to a new level, and the attack papers came out in strength, and it was interesting because I was in Hong Kong when I was the first meeting I was sort of supposed to be the chair of at the World Congress of Pediatric Cardiology and Cardiac Surgery, and every day we had pro and con debates, and it wasn't like there was any problem with that. But after the ACIP, after looking at all the data, especially for the hepatitis B negative mother, that we know they're hepatitis B negative, really we felt no benefit for the birth dose, and there was only risk of neonatal fever and a whole bunch of other concerns that we saw. We saw 2 different studies that had an uptick in SIDS following that, and so what we advised was to move that out of the neonatal period, which is a very critical period of development in the infant, and let people decide, because it's really a sexually and blood transmitted disease. So a lot of the other countries have been doing this idea of you treat for high risk, not for low risk, and there are a lot of data out there that are encouraging and showing that is completely with very little risk at all of someone getting hepatitis B. So when we did that there was a huge outcry that we were going to send all these kids to death. But everything we've done, we've allowed everything to get the same vaccines. Any of our changes of recommendations have still made it available for a doctor and patient to get whatever they would like. But we don't feel like we can recommend things that we don't have the data to support and be able to explain to patients clearly what is the risk and what are the benefits, both of what is the risk of getting the disease, what is the risk of getting a vaccine, what is the benefit of getting the vaccine. So all these things and then suddenly I found myself getting a phone call, and I thought, oh, I know what this is. I was in Hong Kong, and it was like, we're going to have to let you go. And I said, well, you sure you don't want to just hide me? You can put me in a clinic. I won't be in the hospital. It won't be such a thing. But they were getting so many phone calls. And I don't know who they were getting the phone calls from, but they were getting so many phone calls. They just said it become a public, I'd become basically a public relations nightmare for them. And then the lovely Dr. Milhoan is a pediatric cardiac anesthesiologist. She wrote a Substack basically on the irony that they were coming after me. She goes, and basically what she was saying is, this is like the most scientifically sounded guy I know. He was not going to get confused by a YouTube video or this. And so she said, what an irony of this. Well, that Substack got legs. And then one of the heart surgeon I worked with really came to bat for me and said, this isn't, what you're doing is this isn't right. And so he got me reinstated within 24 hours. But boy,
that's good.
I've had so many pediatricians and nurses and others come. I've had people contacting me saying that, oh boy, they really appreciate this sort of bringing a light to this area that we thought was really, really well studied. And as we bring the light in and investigate and ask just honest, simple questions, we're finding that the science isn't as secure and the data isn't as profound as we would have hoped. And people are saying to me privately, I don't want to say anything. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my career. But we like what you're doing. And that to me is chilling.
Listen, there's so many layers to that. One is it seems like a lot of it is Trump derangement at the outset. But then underneath that is this notion that the CDC is practicing medicine or something, that the CDC is going to mandate what we do as physicians. It's an advisory panel, strictly advisory. When I was teaching medicine, here are words that never came out of my mouth. Does the CDC allow you to do that? Or what does the FDA say about that? I never, ever. I might say, give me the MMR, give me MWR, let me look at it. But I said, give me the literature, give me what data there is, give me what research there is, let me evaluate it. That's how we practice medicine. This notion that the government is involved in that is wild. It's just wild. And so there's that. And then there's this aspect of bottom-up prison guards, essentially, forcing everybody into this weird, lockstep world that is the opposite of how I was trained, the opposite of science, as I understand it. And it's just the weirdest thing. It's like being in some sort of through the looking glass in some way. Could you imagine 20 years ago? If somebody had described this to you, you would just go, you wouldn't understand what they were talking about. You just go, I don't, what? What?
I'm sure you had this experience as well. When I looked at patients, there were a lot of reasons I might give them an exemption for, just like I would declare a patient allergic to a medicine. I would say, you know what, your history, what I hear here, I don't want you to have this vaccine or this vaccine or this vaccine, or maybe I don't want you to have any vaccines, depending on what their history was. Yeah. I was never questioned on that. There was never, I never got a form. I could just say this person is exempted from this vaccine. That was it. Then all of a sudden during COVID, we started getting these forms that I had to tell you why I was exempting them. That was such a violation of patient-doctor relationship. But now the school secretary is getting this information. The maitre d' at the restaurant gets to know what your personal medical, and I was just like, this is unbelievable what we're seeing here.
Unbelievable, yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So what happened once you got inside the ACIP? What did you see there? Because I probably was like you. I was like, oh yeah, vaccines, most important thing, and since good nutrition and sanitation, I would just say that over and over and over again. I used to say there weren't enough vaccines available for my family. We need more vaccines. Got them. That's what people did. They developed more vaccines. I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong, and I've had to reconsider all that. And it's interesting, hepatitis B for me is kind of for me where the rubber hits the road, because I was involved in some of that research in the early 80s, and we never intended that for babies. It was designed for maternal fetal transmission in China and for healthcare workers and for drug addicts. That's who we were concerned with. And if you have risk for hepatitis B later in life, take the damn vaccine. And I took the booster recently, because I have some risk as a healthcare provider. But to give it to 1-day-olds was the weirdest thing in the world to me.
Yeah, well, the New York Times did a beautiful job in 1991 explaining why they did it. They did it because they couldn't get uptake in the adult population. So they just went ahead and decided to make it basically mandatory or recommended for all newborns. I think what you're seeing here with the new ACIP committee is we're committed to returning back to not a cookie cutter approach to medicine, but an individualized doctor-patient, the decision being made between doctor and patient. The pendulum swung too far to public health, and we wanted everything done for the same people so there'd be no questions. But that's not good medicine. Good medicine is personally tailored medicine between doctor and patient, understanding everything. Because you know this, every person has a different risk factor, different genetics, different home background they're living in. And to say that we're going to do the same thing for everyone, it is actually, we're doing harm to people who don't need something. And to me, that is where we need to start out with, especially for preventive medicine. A preventive medicine is different than if I have someone dying in the ICU. I use a lot more risky medicines when I have someone on the brink of death. Everyone sort of understands that. When I'm looking at a perfectly healthy child, then my standard for low risk, if I don't even know if this person's going to get this disease, that risk has to be close to zero. Or else I'm doing harm to a patient.
But of course, it's do no harm, risk-reward analysis. But public health doesn't really have that same mandate. And you're just talking about practicing medicine the way we've always practiced it. Something happened in the last 12 or 14 years where this, I started seeing a lot of MPHs after people's name, and I didn't understand why. Why are you all getting public health degrees? And it sort of took over. And then I feel like something happened with the electronic medical record where all of a sudden everyone's following algorithms. It just moved in a direction that was anathema to medicine.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. What I also say is that a lot of the data that we're being shown is coming from medical records, and they're just looking at data mining of the electronic medical record. The problem is that's only as good as how conscientious the person who's filling out the medical record is. And most of us who do electronic medical records, if a patient has 15 diagnoses, I'm not necessarily going to put down all the diagnoses that patient has. I'm going to put down what I want to for why I'm seeing them. And I just want to get the green light so I can get out of the chart. Right? Because they have cost me so much more time doing electronic medical record when in the old days I could just do a quick dictation and get all the good information there. But so this information is being used, and there's this sense that if we did the data mining of the electronic medical record, that it's unflawed. And that's what Tracy Beth Hogue, when she and the people at the FDA went back in and looked at a lot of the COVID death data and started looking at charts, not ICD codes, but charts. And then they started saying, wait a minute, when we looked at the charts, there's a lot more concern. And that's when they really started seeing the death signal in the young males who had really zero risk for COVID. And we were giving them something that caused serious harm, even to the point of death.
And back to your observation about POTS, I saw tons of POTS, and I saw tons of atrial arrhythmias in young people, which you never saw before. And some of those POTS syndrome, where people faint essentially, ended up like Bob Saget. They ended up falling on a hard floor, fracturing their skull, and dying.
Heather McDonald
did it during a performance. She's lucky
obvious.
She was lucky that she didn't kill herself falling off the stage.
Yeah.
But it's not just that they're having, a lightheadedness. It causes syncope, real fainting.
Yeah, and very dangerous. That's, to me, the most dangerous thing about syncope is if there's some syncope where people have no warning and they just go over, and your risk of head injury is my biggest concern. But what I'm seeing is not only POTS, but I'm seeing what I would call inappropriate sinus tachycardia. That's when someone's sitting on a couch. They're not standing up. They're just sitting. And all of a sudden, their heart rate goes up to 180. And then it drops down to 40. And then so the body has lost control over the heart rate. And so you have this adrenal surge that's causing a race, and then the vagus comes in and you might drop very low. But this is very disconcerting to people. And as a cardiologist, what will happen is you do a Holter monitor to look at what the EKG looks like. And what you see is sinus rhythm. It's sinus tachycardia, but it's sinus rhythm. Well, we always sort of are reassured by that they don't have supraventricular tachycardia or ventricular tachycardia.
Right.
But so we go, oh, don't worry, it's not a problem. But the person says, wait, I have a heart rate of 180 because I look on my iWatch or my Fitbit, and it's very disconcerting if you're sitting there all by yourself and all of a sudden your heart rate goes up to 180 because you think, what's going to happen? Am I going to die? And
well,
so a lot of these
I
people
by the way,
gaslit.
think that I think some of that is actually a junctional rhythm. It looks like a sinus rhythm. I really do, because I've seen people get ablations that take care of all that of a low rhythm source, through near the SA node. But we're getting into the weeds, you and I. Let's go back to the ACIP committee and what you found when you got in there. What has been shocking to you now that you've looked under the hood?
A couple different things. One is there's a paucity of data that can really be understood and give true information to parents and those who are taking medicines on what the real risks and benefits and how far we've studied these vaccines or vaccine products or even monoclonal antibodies to watch for long-term risk. Some of these, like for the Hep B stuff, some of it was 7 days and less. That's how long they studied to see for any untoward effects. The other thing that we've seen is a real paucity of post-marketing evaluations of these products. And so those two things, I think that there's been, I know I did, there was an assumption that all of the really good evaluation had been done. I spent 5 years of my life while I was getting my PhD in doing very rigorous science. And I understood all about controls and how there are so many confounders. And the schedule we have right now is so full that it is full of so many confounders, and people have so many confounders, and there is diet and there is genetics and there is environment and so many things. So to try to tease this out, it is really difficult. So if we don't know, we should err on the part of safety, not on let's just give it anyway. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring back truer risk assessments. And when those weren't done, then we're going to be honest with people that we really don't know, and that we need to look long-term at these interventions that we've been doing and be honest with people if we've caused harm. And then what really has to happen is the medical community and the government needs to take some responsibility and realize that we have encouraged people and that has caused them to be harmed. And we have to come to their defense, and we need to start doing rigorous studies, as Dr. Bhattacharya and others have talked about, to see how we can help them. Because we are still really trying to figure out how we can help those people who just have either long COVID or injury from the COVID vaccine.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. And at least you're able to say those words out loud without people going, there's no problem with the vaccine. So I always thought, when people talk about vaccine safety, they go, it's been used by millions of people. It's all perfect. It's fine. But of course, there's been no studies done, has there? There's actually no post-approval, real significant science done. Is that accurate?
Well, especially not without huge confounders. When you try to pull these apart, if you listen to the 2018 ACIP meeting and they were talking about these things, they were talking about combination vaccines. And so they had already approved what was recommended, and they said they had no data, but it was approved 100% by the committee. Then they went to some questions and they said, well, do we have any data from Europe that shows using these combined vaccines? And I said, we have no data. Do you have any from the US that we have? No, we have no data.
It's amazing.
Those questions were asked after they had 100% approval. So
what was happening? What was that? Was that some weird group think? What? It's hard to believe. What was that?
So the CDC, the subject matter experts of the CDC presented the data and said, we recommend approval. And so the committee said,
I see.
Okay. And
I see.
And so what's happening when we're going, well, wait a minute, we don't have enough data to feel like we can recommend. I think a lot of us, we've dug a lot deeper into these things since the COVID vaccine. I think that really changed a lot of people's eyes in terms of, can I trust this data? And we started seeing something in scientific papers that sounded like public health papers and not science papers, and they seemed like they had to say certain things in the literature, like, well, we all know it works. Actually, we don't know it works. The study out of Cleveland Clinic is really quite damning. And when you look at the other data in terms of risks, they're largely being ignored. I think probably you've seen the VAERS data on the amount of reports, and it just skyrockets. It looks like a skyscraper when you look at the COVID years. Where's the curiosity of doctors, right? But I know they're curious. They're just afraid. And
by the way, I had a 100-year-old woman. I saw not a lot of bad reactions in elderly patients. That's mostly who I was vaccinating. And I think I helped some with particularly during the Alpha and Delta eras. But by the way, that's the other thing just drives me insane. Every time people bring up the benefits of vaccine, they keep talking about a virus that's not here. They talk about Alpha and Delta. Yes, there was a 6-month period where there probably was some real benefits for elderly patients. It was a different virus than Omicron. Stop talking about Alpha and Delta. It's so weird.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
So crazy, but I made a report on a 100-year-old that had an atrial arrhythmia like instantly after getting the vaccine. Like a couple hours later, nearly died. A 100-year-old doesn't want to go in the hospital. I had to manage her as an outpatient. I'm anticoagulating her and all this stuff, and we got through it. And she did okay. I've made a VAERS report, followed up twice, no follow-up whatsoever. Near-death experience in a 100-year-old, directly related to the vaccine. Clearly a vaccine injury. No interest, no curiosity, no nothing. This VAERS thing is worthless. It's worthless. And I'm sure you've read Joseph Fryman's stuff too, where he and his group did some interesting studies on the original Pfizer analysis, and he got a meeting with the FDA, and the stuff that the FDA was not aware of was just mind blowing in their own system. People reporting stuff to them, ignorant of.
So hopefully we have a lot of people who are interested in bringing the transparency and the integrity back. We have to do something, because the lack of trust in medicine, it's not just for vaccines, it's spread into all medicine. And it is, we have to do whatever we need to do. There has to be some real soul searching. There has to be a lot more humility among the medical community to be able to say, wow, we were wrong on this. And make it better, or we lose trust for not just vaccines, but all of medicine.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are similar heritage and vintage, and here we are years later, and it's just I don't recognize my profession. So let's hope we can kind of bring it back. I thank you for the work you're doing, and I know you have to stand up to a lot. And if there's more we can do to support you or to get information out, we have a pretty good following here. Let me quickly just go to my chat room here and see what people are thinking. Yeah, they're very supportive. This is as much I know as noise as there is on one side, there's a lot of people who really value and appreciate what you're doing. And we get to hear from those people. So they're saying thank you, and I will say the same. And where would you like people to go to find you?
You can find me on X and K Milhoan, MD, PhD.
KMILHOAN?
AN.
Is that right? Yeah. MD, PhD. Yeah. HLAN. Wait, I'm looking at it right now. MK Milhoan. There it is. Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope to talk to you again very soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
All righty. All right. Now we're going to wrap it up with some wisdom from Jeffrey Tucker from Brownstone Institute right after this. Weight loss and gum loss, the Wellness Company's got you covered with new products. Drop. It's for aggressive appetite control. It comes in easy-to-use liquid drops. No prescription, no painful shot. It is an oral peptide called Retartratide. It actually mimics the way the body naturally loses weight, and it is designed to support faster, more focused weight loss when combined with healthy eating and exercise. And Smile is a breakthrough fluoride-free peptide toothpaste. It gently whitens and reverses gum loss, actually rebuilding tissue at its source. With a proprietary blend of peptides, remineralizers, and soothing botanicals. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for more information on Drop and Smile. And check out another new and innovative solution for hair loss called Roots while you're there. That's drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid, it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15.
The other day he looked at me and he goes, "Hey, the V-shred's working." He likes it when I try to look good for him. That's all.
Nice. There's an excitement that comes with doing these kinds of workout that kind of sustains you through the day.
It's exhilarating.
It's not working out hours in the gym. It's not running on a treadmill forever. It's not killing yourself with diet. These are all very reasonable recommendations. You just got to follow it. We're actually really genuinely very excited about what we're getting out of this. We like doing it together. We're both in on this, and it's been a real fun adventure. I don't know where we stop.
And the first 2 weeks, I lost 5 pounds. So There you go.
In your 20s, it's easy, right? We put on muscle easily. We're fit. We got tons of stamina. But as you get older, you may not be able to lose weight as quickly or as easily. You may not be able to put muscle on so easily. And joints and muscles sometimes start to hurt. And you may think or may have been told that there's nothing you can do about it other than taking more pills, eating more salads, or just spending endless hours at the gym. Well, that isn't true. Thousands of people are in the best shape of their lives merely because they've taken the time to do 3 things. No crazy diets, no extraordinary workouts that can injure yourself or exhaust yourself. Just a simple plan that has been proven to work. Rather than me explaining this to you for 30 minutes, there's a 30-second quiz you can take. So if you want to learn more right now, click the link below to get your personal life plan.
All right. 2 of your favorite products sold by our family of sponsors are, of course, grass-fed finished bone broth and the protein powder and the meat sticks made by Paleo Valley. They are, of course, my favorites as well. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off your first order and 20% off when you subscribe. Bone broth protein powder is made with bones, not hides. It's just 80 calories per scoop. Incredibly useful for appetite suppression. It's packed with collagen. That's something that we tend to lack in our modern diet. The beef sticks, of course, come in pork, venison, chicken, beef, also high protein, low calories, impeccably sourced, minimally processed. The new year will be no different for me and Susan when it comes to putting the chocolate bone broth in our coffee almost every day. And of course, the beef sticks when we travel. Again, that is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off discount and 20% off when you subscribe. All right, nobody better than Jeffrey Tucker to come in here and spit some wisdom at us to wrap all this up today. Jeffrey, Brownstone Institute, thank you so much for being here as always. Did you hear some of that? I imagine a lot of that interested you. We live in extraordinary times.
Yeah, I can't stop talking about all these subjects, whether it's ASAP or the new dietary stuff or the new research on vaccines, or what's happening from HHS with the childhood schedule. I find this stuff endlessly fascinating. I feel like I know a lot of the players. I love information gathering. The press cares, Brownstone cares. This is one of the most exciting times of my life, I have to say.
But it's so crazy to me. When we were all together in Pittsburgh, there was almost an underground gathering. You know, it was where we dare to share ideas that were running countercurrent to the canon that was being just ruthlessly. It's like this is I don't think since Thomas Aquinas times have we seen stuff like this. This is the Spanish Inquisition stuff.
Isn't it remarkable, Dr. Drew? Because, so much of this was born with the COVID response. Life is going to seem to be going along normal. I mean, that was for me. Life's normal. Life's good. Yeah, we can make a few tweaks here and there, but progress is happening. And out of nowhere, everything went into upheaval. Our schools, churches closed. Yeah. Businesses shut. There were drones flying over the sky looking for house parties to make sure they weren't happening. I had to arrange for underground haircut, a person to come to a house and invited some friends. She insisted on cash only. It was an insane time. Thrown out of stores for not wearing masks and so on. My social circle was entirely ruined. And my ideological world was shattered because not everybody agreed. A lot of people I thought were for liberty were suddenly all for lockdowns. So, and then we waited to see, well, what's the point of all this stuff, right? Where are we going with this?
Right.
And then comes the injection, right? Clearly not necessary for a vast demographic of the population. They were forced to get it. Students in college were told, your life will be ruined unless you get this shot. Mm-hmm. Wait, I don't think I need it. It doesn't matter. You have to comply. My whole life, I've waited to go to college. This is my career. Too bad for you.
And with the emergency use authorization and the PrEP Act, nobody has any liability for what was incurred. Nothing. Nobody.
This is the real problem with the business mandates and the school mandates, because a lot of people said, well, schools have all sorts of standards. They can make any rules they want. Business, says you can't work for us unless you do X, Y, Z. Oh, so what? They added vaccine to it. Okay, maybe that's their freedom. But on the other hand, in a free market, there's liability. Like if something goes wrong, somebody's got to pay the price. Yeah. But these vaccine manufacturers were indemnified against all harm. So they can never be held accountable for this by law. So this is an outrage.
Not just the vaccine manufacturers, but those that mandated the vaccine because of the PrEP Act incurred no liability. I thought they should be gone after. I found out the PrEP Act protected them. And then now I feel like somebody took the sheets of the bed and just went whew, like this because now we're looking at fraud and how NGOs operate. All these things we didn't know about when life was going along normally before COVID. It exposed so much.
Everything. It's like the curtain was pulled back on the entire racket, which was already there, but we didn't, at least I personally didn't know it was there. So this is all new to me.
I had no idea.
And for me, I started Brownstone Institute mainly to investigate this stuff. Like what's wrong with the world that would have allowed this situation to happen? And the more we look, the more we're shocked. The Minnesota thing is very much connected to the COVID response, which people don't mention. But it is. Yep. Over the course of about 13 months between March 2020 and April 2021, the federal government released $4.6 trillion in the form of paycheck protection and direct infusions to bank accounts and subsidizing childcare and everything else. And now it turns out, and by the way, nobody knows what $4.6 trillion means, right? But if you think of it as the GDP of Japan or the GDP of Germany, okay, that's what it is, was flooded throughout the entire country. And now, all these years later, we're seeing what happened to it. And it went into a bunch of fakery or money laundering or vote buying. The scandals are just astounding. Because no wonder collapse in government the collapse in trust in government is so palpably obvious. It's down to 17%. In the early 1960s, it was 80%. Now it's at 17%. Same thing with the media. Same thing with the medical profession. And it's hardly a surprise that vaccines uptake has collapsed and the industry is scared. So here's the irony of the whole thing, Dr. Drew, to me. As far as I can tell, the lockdowns happened to prepare the way for the shot, right? So we've got a big industry saying, don't worry, we'll inoculate the population against this terrible disease. So they come out with this product. Nobody wants it, or not that many people wanted it, so they had to mandate it across the population. Well, all these years later, what's the effect? Nobody trusts the industry anymore. Vaccine uptake has collapsed. We're seeing vaccines removed from the childhood schedule. So it was a catastrophe, even from the point of view of pharma. It's like they overreached, and now everything is being unraveled. And to me, this is the right way to understand everything that's happening right now. Mass incredulity is resulting in dramatic political reforms. Two of these we've seen just this week with the upheaval in the childhood schedule. HHS said we're tired of waiting for the ACIP committee. It's going too slow. So here's your new childhood schedule, right? Dropped it from 82 shots to like 23, 17 diseases to 11. That was one day. 24 hours later, we've got the food pyramid turned upside down, something everybody wanted to see happen for really decades, but nobody was willing to do anything. And the reason for this is essentially RFK cannot act fast enough. I mean, I think they're getting the message here that we need dramatic truth-telling and huge reform immediately.
And speaking of reform, I read your Brownstone post on insurance. I don't know if you're aware, I think this just happened. The House passed a 3-year extension on Obamacare subsidies.
No, I knew that was going to happen. And it had to happen, right? I mean, because they couldn't get their act together in time. That, I mean, what else are they going to do? But before the end of the year, they need to get their act together and get a serious, comprehensive reform program in line. And I've been very much an advocate of this. And I wrote an article for Epoch Times the other day, and it went in their weekly email.
Was it Epoch Times? I thought it was Brownstone. Where do people find it? Because I thought it was Brownstone.
I think that was at Epoch Times. Although I wrote one version for an early version for Brownstone, but what I did in the Epoch article was make it simple enough so that even a politician could understand, right? Because
it was good.
The Republicans just can't seem to get their act together, and it's a shock. They don't know what to do. So I laid out 3 essential points, and then 2, would be nice to haves, as clearly stated as possible. So that they can prioritize what they need to do to fix the medical insurance marketplace starting now. I mean, the extension of the subsidies, what else are they going to do? I get it. They didn't have a plan. If you can believe it, after 10 years, more than 10 years, they still don't have a plan to replace Obamacare. So my article is designed to give a plan with 3 priorities.
It was like a roadmap too. I like the way you laid it out. But when I stand back, the stuff that jumped out at me was high, insurance against catastrophe, which is what insurance was supposed to be, not an entitlement, but an insurance against severe financial liabilities. So let's just stop high deductibles.
There. Right. Yeah. We need to stop right there because this is actually the most important thing. You cannot buy really a catastrophic plan in the medical marketplace for insurance today if you're over 30. And that's crazy. I have friends of mine with, 2, 3, 4 kids. They're paying, twice their mortgage on health insurance. This is crazy. Everybody should have access to a catastrophic plan. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, and you were sort of advocating that we untangle it from employers and maybe have our own sort of savings plans or something in that zone.
Well, so number one, make available catastrophic insurance. They don't have to make it available. They only have to permit insurers to offer that. I asked AI how much would that cost, and it came back to me like $100 a month, maybe, depending on what it covers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's entirely affordable.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it could happen.
It's what it was designed to be. Yeah,
Right.
It was designed to be. You remember back in the 60s, hospital expense suddenly went through the roof. Because people were being, getting fancy treatments and surgeries, and ICUs were invented, and the ventilators came into being. These things cost money, and people were being given these multi-$100,000 bills when they left the hospital, and it was destroying people. This is the 60s. And they said, we got to insure against that. And we did. And then all of a sudden, the employers were competing for labor by offering more and more and more and more coverage, till it became just axiomatic that people are entitled to it. It's a human right.
Right.
And
right.
that's when we really went off the rail.
And Obamacare, I think you had a bunch of intellectuals with a blackboard, and they just started just listing what should be in these plans. Right. And they kept adding to it and adding to it and adding
Hillary
to it.
Clinton.
Mental health coverage. I mean, you name it, everything. And then now we have defined benefits packages that are mandated by law. This has to stop immediately. This would solve so much of the problem. If you could have insurers just give a minimalist package to people that they could purchase, and otherwise paying cash for their health care, and it would cover catastrophic things like a skiing accident, sudden cancer,
just cost too.
The things that you need. So the Republicans need to get this right. Make catastrophic available, at least allow the insurers to make it available to people to purchase. And people would flee to such programs immediately. All the people that are paying for Obamacare right now, they're not covered by their employment, they would flee to these plans immediately. And it would dramatically reduce the cost. I don't even understand why this is a question. This is the most important thing. The second point I made concerns HSAs, which we have, and a lot of people know about them. But I'm sure you know this, but HSAs are only available right now to the insured population, which doesn't make any sense. Like, the whole point of an HSA is to make it possible for people to save money for their health care, and that money is tax-free and it can be invested. So it grows if the financial markets are rising. It grows over time. So you have a nest egg reserved just for healthcare purchases, but you only have access to HSAs today if you already have insurance. And the reason for that, of course, is to cover the extremely high and growing so-called, I hate this language, deductibles that are a part of insurance. Right now, you pay for insurance. I hope this is not getting boring, but you pay for insurance, but you don't get anything. All you get is coverage. But if you use it, now suddenly you're really going to pay. So you may be paying $27,000 a year, but for what? For the right to pay more? That's it? Okay, so the purpose of the HSA is to enable you to have a nest egg in case you have to have deeper diagnostics or there's catastrophic thing. Okay, all that's fine. But why is it only reserved for the insured? It should be available to everybody. Anybody should be able to go to their bank, click a button, here's my HSA, throw unlimited amounts of money into the HSA so that they can be liberated from this exploitative system. So you might even drop your health insurance in exchange for which you're saving money for coverage. Now, if you can combine that with a catastrophic,
and you combine it with a catastrophic coverage, you're pretty much there, and you have the power of the marketplace in your hands. You can believe me, physicians will happily. They want to take care of people. They want to help people, and they'll reduce their prices. And you'll find, because you'll now be actually paying cash on the barrelhead, that You won't go to an urgent care because that's $1,200. You go to the doctor, it's $37. It really is so cheap. People don't even understand how cheap it is to see a doctor.
Economizing on what you're spending because you're looking at your HSA grow in value. You like the fact that you have $10,000, $20,000 sitting there in HSA. It delights you. You don't really want to use it. So now suddenly you've got an incentive to stay healthy and to watch your costs and to ask your providers, what are they going to charge for the service? That completely changes everything. But it's got to be made to
don't worry.
Single person.
Mr. Mamdani will institute centralized services for everybody. It's going to be okay. Don't worry. But
what about Social Security? Like we've had great insurance all these years because Drew is saying afterwards. We're paying tax on Social Security, Medicare, because we work and we put money in every year, a lot of it between Drew and myself. But then we also get charged for our Medicare and we get penalized for our Medicare because we make money. Right. And then we have to buy supplemental. So I'm up to like 25 grand or maybe more, 30 grand a year between us. And I'm not a sick person, but I don't understand how people live like this. Like, I mean, we're fortunate enough to be able to afford it and whatever. And we were really lucky with our SAG-AFTRA for years and years. Thank you, MTV. But I find that the system is really flawed in this way. And I mean, I don't need to have free services if something comes up, but I appreciate it now. But I'm paying in.
Yeah, my article does not touch Medicare. And my own view is the Republicans are so shockingly lame and so dispersed and confused about this that we just really need to focus on a few points. And that's why my article just reduces it to make catastrophic coverage available, make HSAs available for everybody, including the uninsured with unlimited contributions. And
elderly people?
I mean, I think HSAs are one of the few innovations. Keep in mind, they were only invented to enable this high deductible things, right? It was like there's no way you could have $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 deductibles and not allow people to save money tax-free to pay for that. So that's why they're there. But we've got them. Now expand them. My third point is designed to say we need to have incentives to get people to untie employment from healthcare, which is a weird thing. Like, why are they the same thing? It's inhibiting job creation because it makes employees much more expensive to hire. And the premiums are going up and up and up. And it ties people to the jobs that they may not like and makes them feel like they can't go, well, the benefits are good. All right. You can get rid of this system through incentives, right? So if you can give businesses tax breaks for offloading their employees and encourage the employees to purchase their own private insurance, you could completely decouple employment from the payment of health insurance, and therefore get rid of a lot of this third-party stuff where people don't even know the costs. Employees have no idea how much this stuff costs, and they could be taking what their employers are paying and premiums for their health insurance as wages, as salary. And I bet that they would do that if they could go out into a marketplace that had catastrophic coverage plus high HSAs available. You can see
it's rational. It's rational.
That's right. So these 3 points
are largely they. Go ahead.
Yeah, these 3 points would completely dismantle Obamacare, right? There's other details, that we need to could go into here, and plenty more to do because so much is broken with the medical industry in general and blah blah blah. There's a lot of things we could talk about, but if you could just prioritize these 3 points and get a small piece of legislation to do those 3 things: catastrophic plans, HSAs for everybody, and incentives and benefits for people to decouple the connection between health insurance and employment, you could already have a brilliant reform, and the rest, I think, would take care of itself.
I agree, and it is. Although humans are not strictly rational operators, they have a rational bent, a rational bias, and this is tuning right into their rationalism. So let's wrap this up by telling people about. Go ahead, about Brownstone. What's coming up? What are you looking forward to? What's the year ahead in 2026 for Brownstone?
One thing I've started under your influence. Thank you, Dr. Drew. I felt Dr. Drew envy and started my own show. So there you go. So that's that. I just recorded the first episode.
Yay!
So thank you for your.
Congratulations!
Yeah, I'm trying to emulate.
I like the pink background.
Always. Well,
you got to get me as a guest. You got to actually emulate me. Let me be a guest on your show.
What an interesting idea. I like this, but I'm excited about that. The other thing that I think you would be interested in knowing, well, there's so much to know, but this is actually interesting. One of the great irritants in your life and in mine, and in many, many millions of other people, in fact, billions of people around the world, is that we have yet to see a real reckoning for the COVID period.
Right.
There's no commission, no apologies, it seems like everything's just been left hanging. And all we have is anger and resentment, cynicism, and mass incredulity. Okay, what do you do about that? So here's my thought. What about a Senate resolution? A very plain statement, and I wrote it, and I published it on Brownstone, a very plain statement. This was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong, this never should have happened, this violated the Bill of Rights, we violated freedom of religion here, we violated informed consent, we never should have told you to stay home, we busted up your social networks, this was we censored you, we did terrible things, we kicked students out of school, we fired professors, we imposed mandates when nobody needed it. This is what happened. It was terrible. We will never do anything like this again. Okay, so I wrote up a statement, and I'm going to say it's maybe 1,500 words, I think even shorter, but it's very clear. And it's something that I think every Republican, at least for now, would be happy to sign off on. I'm pretty sure. So as of today, we now have several senators very interested in this. And it looks like
amazing.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be hearings on it, on the COVID response itself. And I've been invited to testify, which is very exciting to me.
Oh, fantastic.
And if this happens, then we get this resolution in the Senate, get it passed. And look, we're never going to have real justice. We can't get our money back. We lost 30% of our purchasing power of the dollar during the period, blah, blah, blah. We can go on all day. Learning losses, death. We can't reverse history, but at least we can get this much, a sense of the Senate resolution that this was bad, this was wrong, and we can't ever let anything like this happen again. So I'm excited about this. I'm not a political person, but I think this would be an important cultural statement. Like, we need closure to this somehow.
Well,
this
it's
seems like
not just closure, but what those of us that are so upset about this, the most profound concern is they could do it again. And if something was installed in the historical record as we hold these truths to be self-evident about the COVID era, that could have a profound effect for the record. Jeffrey, I've got to wrap it up. Please keep us posted when that is going to happen, or what we can do to support it, or maybe meet you in Washington and be there in the galley and get behind you, whatever it might be.
Just remember, when it's successful, you have to do it every time.
What's that? What?
When you become successful, you can't go, I don't want to do this today. You have to do it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So she's talking about your show. She switched to your show. You got to do your show whether you want to do it or not, is what she said.
My show. I know it's going to be weekly. Let's see how it goes. I watch you, Dr. Drew, just to see what I want to be like when I grow up. That's all. Yeah.
You're there, my friend. I've heard you speak, and I've no doubt this will be a wonderful show. I'm looking at your particulars.
He
where we
wants to
should
come to one of your events. It just hasn't worked out.
I know. I'm dying to go to a brownstone. That was so wonderful in Pittsburgh. I want to get
Don't
back.
forget about him.
Oh gosh,
Jeffrey
I don't think I told you.
Tucker.me.
People were so thrilled by your talk in Pittsburgh. There's a standing ovation. People were crying. It was such a moving and brilliant talk. I chose right. I mean, that was the culminating speech of the entire event.
Oh yeah, Dr. Bhattacharya was so amazing. I was so fun meeting him in person.
Yeah. But you were brilliant, Dr.
Well, I had two. There were two moments for me with that speech. One was, before I went up, I was like, I'm not sure if I should include this material. And you just go, my advice is just always just get up there and speak from the heart. And I thought, all right, I'm throwing it all away, and I'm just going to do what Jeffrey tells me to do. So I had my notes, but I threw it away for the most part. And then the most meaningful thing for me, I hope you remember this, Brett Weinstein ran up to me afterwards and went, that is the problem. The adulteration of science. The science is, the scientific method is not being taught. It's a delicate instrument, and people don't understand this. And I thought, yes, I see it. I've seen it for 40 years. It's been a problem. And so I hope he is still with us and working hard with Brownstone, because that piece needs to be not forgotten. Because that I think Dr. Milhoan, who I just spoke to, is a strong advocate of this as well, I'm sure. But Brett is his own special influence, and we got to keep
kind
him
of our nation's biological scientist. I mean, he represents, in many ways, he is the science for us. I'm like, in a real sense.
Well, he defends the ways Francis Bacon's notion of the scientific method, which is science, and it has never changed. And we have adulterated it. We don't teach it, and it is made for shitty results, not necessarily shitty results. Jeffrey, always great. It's been too long. Let's get you back in here soon. I'm going to go back in your thing. I'm going to see you in Washington. We're going to come to the Senate hearings and watch you take these people on. I can't wait.
Good. All right. Thank you, Dr. Drew. Thank you for having me.
All right, Jeffrey. You got it, of course, always. All right. So, Caleb, let's throw up what's coming up here. We've got James Zimmerman, Laura Chen. That'll be very interesting. Kira Davis coming back. Give us a little taste of how she's going to be. We have to leave that next week. Kira Davis will sit in on my behalf. We've got Salty Cracker coming back. JP Sears coming back. And, of course, more yet to be lined up.
Maybe you can call in. You can just
call in on the Kira Davis show?
Yeah.
Well, Kira is quite capable. Believe me. You'll see. I'll introduce her to you all on the 13th, and then a week later she'll do the show. But I feel very good about the way 2026 is starting out for this show. We have had so many
Thank
great
you for watching.
guests. We appreciate you guys being here. I hope you are as enthusiastic as I have been about what I've learned and who I've been speaking to.
Thank you, Emily Barsh, for your hard work.
She does an amazing job. Let me just look quickly at the restream and the Rumble rants. What's the matter?
Well, I don't know. My mic is just like, meow. It just won't stay up.
All right, everybody. We've heard about Susan's mic. Now we can go. So we
start talking about that.
We are back on next Tuesday at 2:00. We will see you then.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. Emily Barsh is our content producer.
As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.